Welcome one more day to Space in Harmonia. Today we are going to distinguish between different aspects concerning the spirit and the soul. What is the difference between an old soul and a new soul? What's the origin of the soul and the spirit? And why the spirit, coming from a spiritual source, can be trapped in the world of darkness as it happened to the first Adamic species from which we descend? And how many types of spirit and soul do we have? These are questions which I have been gathering in the last days. Some people ask me very profound questions, and I'm going to answer them in detail, writing an article. I will leave it in the blog. I'm still transcribing one of the sessions, and I will publish it as well in the blog, because it talks about the different lines of division. And today we are going to see this subject in a deeper way, because when we are talking about the new soul, we are basically referring to a soul that is being formed in these days within some people by the influx of the spirit of life we have received from the Master, from the primordial source, if you will. Because he said, I will give you a new helper, the Holy Spirit, and even the Spirit of Truth. The Holy Spirit is the primary emotional guidance that we can receive when we are young. But as we develop the mind, we can search for truth and be guided by the Spirit of Truth, is the mind of the Messiah. And when this gets into contact with our human soul, it elevates our human soul and it generates a new type of soul which is immortal. This is what we understand as the Son of God within ourselves. And we have to become mothers taking care of our divine baby. And if it's just an embryo, it has to be born. Otherwise, the soul can be subject to returns known as Gilgulim. If it's born, it can continue in other levels. Now, the old souls descend basically from the Adam Arishon, the first Adam, which was the soul of humanity that fell many thousands of years ago, at least 6,000 years ago, even though that humanity came from previous ages. But the main fall was 6,000 years ago, or even 8,000, between 8,000 and 6,000. And the soul we have inherited is spread across humanity in different levels. Some people have more vital aspects of those first humans. Others have more emotional aspects. Others even receive the intellectual higher aspect of those humans. Even parts of the soul of Adam which never fell. And this is very interesting because, as Rabbi Isaac Luria and Chaim Vital, his disciple, taught, there are intellectual souls, or neshemot, that come to help us, and these descend from the head of Ankh-Morpork, which never fell. However, these are not the new souls we are speaking about when we relate with the Master that came 2,000 years ago. Rabbi Isaac Luria was a Kabbalist and therefore Jewish. He didn't speak about Yeshua as we are considering, But he was somehow opening the way to understand all this. And he was basically working with the neshemot, or souls, that come from the head of Adam Arishon. Adam Arishon was a collective soul. Some parts of that soul came from the head. That's the spirit part, the breath. Then there are parts that are more vital, nefeshot, and ruachim, spirits, because Adam could be compared to a giant man in the world of Beria. So some groups of humanity have maybe souls from the arms, the limbs, the organs of Adam Arishon. And this means they have different degrees of evolution. But those that come from the head, supposedly, are more evolved. And those are the ones that come to inhabit people that have an interest for these subjects. And they are usually called Israelites, because an Israelite is someone that can conquer the radiations of the stars, the planets, the sun, the moon, because they have the influence of the Neshama of Adam Arishon. However, Israel fell because they didn't have the connection with the new spirit of life and the new spirit of truth. This is the difference. And this means we have a plus of understanding if we really understand what the Master taught. He showed the way. I am the way which you have to walk. And this means we know the face of the divine, because he said, "He who saw me saw the Father." Now, we never knew Yeshua in the flesh, but we know his personality, how he was, and this is knowing him. The face of the Father is the Son, and this means we live in a relationship face to face. This is the characteristic of the new soul, whereas the old soul is a relationship back to back. They didn't know the face of Yud Kevab Hei, of the Holy One, and they didn't even know the face of their own spiritual breath sometimes. Man and woman were disconnected in the Garden of Eden. They were back to back. And this is why they fell. So we have to understand that the most important is to have a conscious relationship with the messenger, the divine part that comes from the spirit of truth. And as I said, this is like the relationship between the bridegroom and the bride, which eventually become one. This is when we fully express ourselves as divine souls, because the soul doesn't come fully made. It is formed, and it's formed by the influx. We can compare this to blowing through a crystal, which is information, and blowing is the neshama, the breath of understanding. The wind generated within the receptacle is the ruach, the emotional part, and the vitality generated is the nefesh. Now there are two more degrees of the soul, which are the haya, the will of living, the longing to become really sons of the divine, united with the Holy One. That union is the last degree. It's known as Yehidah. So when we unite the three lower parts, Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, when we harmonize them, because they are already one, The neshama, or the breath, is what generates the ruach into contact with the nefesh. So when we are receiving a spirit, an intelligence, something in us must come to life. And this emotionality is the ruach, which is a sort of a spirit, emotional spirit that integrates experiences. It has memories. Because we don't live just to forget everything. No, we live to save our life. That's salvation. That's Yeshua. With patience you will save your souls, he said. And this doesn't mean we have to be worrying about what we are going to save. No, we don't have to worry. We have to enjoy the way, our life, our experiences. Value more the experiences and what we get from them than having possessions. This is basically what the master taught. We have to discern where we are experiencing from. The old soul, which depends on an old spirit, or the new soul and the new spirit. The old soul has an spirit that can be twisted because it didn't come from the father, the primordial father of lights. It came from the mother, several architects that established conditions of evolution, and those beings that were formed with the Adam, the soul of humanity, receive the radiations from the sun and the planets, but through the moon. So, the kind of neshama, or breath of understanding that they had, was not the mind of the Messiah. This is the difference, and this is why Adam could not eat from the tree of life. I think there was an intention of the architects that those species could evolve and could rectify the chaos that came from previous rebellions, the fall of the angels, the host of heavens that rebelled before Adam. That's in Apocalypse chapter 12, when Michael fought the dragon and his angels and cast them to the earth. I think those were the influences that made Adam fall, because Adam received part of the old genetics, and he listened to the whispers of the serpent, which were, in my view, those fallen angels that were whispering and trying to deceive Adam, and they were very successful in doing it, and they are still very successful because they have been perpetuating chaos on earth. There were even angels that came to help. This is the episode of Genesis 6. In the book of Zohar, they are known as Asa and Asael. Azazel, the goat, which is related to the fallen angel that taught certain arts and sorcery to humanity. In principle, they came to help, but they were told not to come because they would be driven by the passions of humanity. But those angels that were pure intelligences incarnated, and that's the fall of those angels, which mix up with the Adamic project, so to say, which was already fallen. Now, when Adam fell, he was obviously influenced by a certain twisted spirit, and then his breath of understanding also generated a ruach that was twisted. First Lilith, and then Lilith was taken away. He developed a new spirit, a new expression, a bodily expression known as the woman, but the woman became entangled with the whispers of the serpent again, and she ate from the tree of knowledge of good and deficiency. This is what made those Adamic species become denser and eventually incarnate fully into the physical. They receive new bodies, even because the ones they had were more reptilian, amphibianic. There were several species from the Adamic soul, and those first Adamic species gave rise to a new humanity known as Cain, the carnal humanity, that killed the breath of conscience, Havel. That was a breath of conscience that is somehow hybrid because it's not fully divine. It's attached to something carnal, as we have today. We can be compared to Cain, even though we descend from Enosh, the son of Seth, because Seth was the legitimate son of Adam and Chava, but he was a hybrid as well. He had the seed of the serpent, but the seed of the woman was stronger. And this is why the line of great prophets like Enoch or Noah descend from Seth. And we can say that those three sons, one of them coming from the serpent partially, represent three types of soul: the carnal soul, the more Abelian conscious soul that has moral or even religious impulses, and one which is more spiritual. But we find even a further subdivision which comes with Noah. Noah represents the higher soul or neshama, and it was subdivided in three because he had three sons: Cam, Shem, and Japheth. Cam represents the nefesh, Japheth the ruach, the emotional part, and Shem the neshama of the neshama. Curiously, Shem and Japheth are the ones that cover his father nakedness, because the neshama can sometimes be obscured with a lack of understanding. That's nakedness. So it needs to be covered with more experience and understanding. Those are further developments of the spirit part of the soul. If you realize I'm using soul and spirit indistinctively, because sometimes what we call a spirit is an aspect of the soul. In other times, the soul is the vital part, which is more animal in the case of the physical body, or more energetic in the case of the neshama. The nefesh of the neshama is actually what was infused into Adam, and Adam never went beyond that level of nefesh. So what we are rectifying is the nefesh of Adam, even though the nefesh is subdivided in nefesh, ruach, and neshama. I clarify all this in the article because it's very important, and it gives the key of the entire Torah, the entire Tanakh. Even if you read the Bible with this understanding, you will get more meaning. Notice how there are three subdivisions from the three sons of Adam. After Noah come Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which are the new development that receives a further seed, the seed of Israel, that is the body of the Messiah. I will make your descendancy like the stars in heaven, because it came from the stars, the host of heaven. But these hosts never fell in the beginning, even though they fell with the golden calf, but it wasn't a rebellion. It wasn't like the rebellion that took place before Adam. We have to distinguish all this because sometimes the adversary infuses our mind with lies so that we mistake the fall of the pre-Adamic angels with the fall of Adam, making us think that it's the same, that we are all fallen angels, but we are not fallen angels in the same way. The draconian fallen angels. This is the thing, because we are in a project of rectification. We are in a project that belongs to the divine life. It's true that divine architects made a mistake, and this is not usually pointed in the three religions, Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, because of course, God is perfect. But that's not the true teaching, because we see, even in the Torah, how there is an incomplete influence that leads to the fall of Adam. The fall of Adam is not just the fault of Adam. Yud-Vav Elohim were the so-called Divine Mother, several architects that tried to rectify the problem, and they wanted Adam to evolve, but the project was a failure. And what the Messiah came to resolve was precisely this question. He knew where the problem was. He didn't blame the architects. Obviously, he focused more on the passions and the influence of Satan, but we have to be aware of the whole situation. And this implies working with the sense of a new spirit, a new intelligence that is guiding us. And last but not least, I would like to distinguish between the pre-personal and the transpersonal. Because sometimes what we are receiving as memories belong to what we have inherited from the Adamic species. Even in the book of Job, there is an amazing passage in Job 38 where he is asked, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding." And then further on, from the versicle 21, "Where is the way to the dwelling of light, and darkness, where is its place, so that you take darkness to its territory, and discern the ways of its house? You know it, because you already have been born, and great is the number of your days." So it's saying that Job was born when darkness was born, when the foundations of the earth were laid. The spirit of Job was that ancient. And some of us have very strange memories that come from those epochs. I remember being in a space of light and even having strange memories of planets and even what we would call outer space, which is not as it is described. It is full of light and life. But all those memories come from the old genetics, and we have to distinguish between the pre-personal memories and the transpersonal. The oceanic experience that we sense as we are babies, for instance, are part of a pre-personal experience. But we have to go through the personal, develop our personality, and experience the transpersonal, which transcends but integrates the personal, making a new soul. That's the key of the new divine soul, which is transpersonal but still personal, because it expresses the personality of the Father, the primordial Father of lights. And therefore, that's what we have to work with. Thank you very much for listening. If you have questions, leave them in the box of comments. I will leave a more developed article in the blog, themusicofwisdom.blogspot.com. And meanwhile, let's keep connecting ourselves to the messenger in ourselves, our true bridegroom, so we can develop the true divine soul and manifest the infinite love and modified life, integral conscience, and deep, blissful serenity.